RK's Guyana Free Media presents for human development and national development this message.
Yes, my beloved divine friends and families, brothers and sisters of Guyana, Guyanese in the diaspora around the world, and friends and families around the world. Your friend and brother me, Haji Roshan Khan, with item 28 of the Guyana Elections Update 2020, brought to you with the RK's Guyana Free Media for understanding of situations and circumstances in Guyana as it pertains to elections 2020, the crisis, the fiasco, the perdition, the disgrace, the international shame that Guyana has entered to because of the few who want to control the destiny of the country, the destiny of our lives, and to mismanage and hijack the nation, and to hijack our souls and enhance and enrich themselves with their corrupt transactions and deceit and dishonesty, along with their contracted, corrupted individuals in Guyana who are making money by the millions and the billions of American dollars and fattening themselves at the risk of destruction and demolition of the Guyanese psyche, making us a national mockery and an international mockery in the Caribbean again, as in the late 60s, 70s and 80s. Friends and families, your brother saying thank you for tuning in, and I have some information for you. This one is taken from the Guyana Chronicle, and it's a letter by no other than trade unionist, political party candidate of the AFC, Lincoln Lewis. Sometimes in the past, Lincoln Lewis had always showed himself to be kind of an independent personality. But eventually, the truth always comes out, because most in Guyana have a political priority. I can tell you, this person here don't have a political priority, and I can work with any government, and I've voted for several parties over the decades, as my heart goes with, and it's never committed to a particular party or political institution. Here in this presentation, Lincoln Lewis is talking to us that it is important for this nation that GCOM arrives at a credible process. Here we go again. The proverbial ink has not dried, and the GCOM Chair Justice Claudette Singh's pronouncement on Friday that not more than 10 workstations will be used in the national recount exercises, and forces in the opposition are once again crying foul. It is clear by their words and actions that they will do anything to stymie the process of the recount of regions 1 to 10 as agreed by President David Granger and Mr. Bharat Jagdeo in the presence of CARICOM Secretary General Erwin LaRocque. In the first instance, it was disappointing to read that CARICOM was the one that had to reject the proposed 20 workstations, which was proposed by the opposition nominated commissioners on the basis of COVID-19 concerns, Lincoln Lewis says. It is embarrassing to this nation and GCOM that such considerations did not take priority in impacting the proposal decision for said number of workstations to even be considered recognizing the health nightmare that could be created with hundreds of persons being together. At this point in time, workers, citizens at every nation with the resource and must be treated as such. Though this recent delay and embarrassment may not matter to those who bent on having their own way by any means necessary, it must not escape attention that the initial CARICOM high-level team was composed of 5 persons. With the workstations now increased in this suspicious political environment, GCOM may find it necessary to examine the necessity of having all the stations observed by CARICOM, lest it creates fodder for the forces to cry foul. Guyana'S having had enough of this victim status and foul crying. It appears as though the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the most oil, and those shouting the loudest are deemed right, never held to account, even when wrong. It is clear that the antics of the opposition commissioners and the campaign rhetoric, aided and supported by international agencies, some of whom appear to be not only acting as agent provocateurs, but outside of their scope of mandate, are largely influencing decision-making in GCOM. Recently, the Organization of American States, OAS, and Commonwealth Observer Missions have issued statements purporting to advise GCOM on who should be the personnel assigned to their recounting and what law ought to be applied in executing the exercise. Such behavior raises questions as to who are these people? What is their real agenda? Do they have the interest of all Guyanese at heart, or only a few? How dare they? How dare the OAS and the Commonwealth? Both missions are headed by former Prime Ministers of Barbados and Jamaica. Both gentlemen could attest to their level of interference in the constitutionally independent GCOM and misapplication of the Constitution and laws surrounding the procedures and practices guiding such an agency. They would not dare think, much less treat with the Elections Commission in their respective countries. Neither would they allow any observer mission, foreign or local, to do so. It is fair to expect that Justice Singh will be guided by the Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, technical competencies on the matter of the recount, even as she takes into consideration concerns of the representative commissioners, not the other way around. This is due to the fact that GCOM, even though a constitutional office, is not independent of political considerations given its makeup. Whereas some seek to operate in the interest of the whole, others appear more overtly and aggressively driven by partisan interests. Justice Singh must ensure the well-being of the whole, including GCOM, is not sacrificed at the altar of reckless partisanship. The initial proposal of 156 days stemmed from Opposition Commissioner Robeson-Benn's proposal to have 2 paired commissioners at each workstation, which meant 3 workstations. Public outcries led to the CEO returning with the proposal of 5 counting tables. Government-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander proposed 8, and the utilization of 3 approaches, various hours of operation for each ballot box. Justice Singh, in her deliberative judgment, has since communicated GCOM will be using not more than 10 workstations. It is important to this nation that GCOM arrives at a credible process and result, taking all factors into consideration. Justice Singh, who has served in the highest echelon of the judiciary, is expected to let the law take precedence and not allow GCOM to be driven by persons whose remit is not to determine the application of Guyana'S laws or who seek lawful and orderly resolution to the present impasse. Regards, Lincoln Lewis. Now, my friends and family, it is obvious that Lincoln Lewis has an agenda, for he is a political advocate of the party in power. The only persons not objecting to anything And all the shenanigans and skullduggery that was taking place at the place of count were, unfortunately, the APNU AFC sat down as if they were expecting all of this from the body language. I can understand Lincoln Lewis's reasons for saying these things and for trying to put a beautiful coloring on what is a nasty situation. The fact, and Lincoln Lewis is a man of intelligence and I respect the guy, you know, but he has his political agenda. And so I will not attack him in any way. He is a politician, trade unionist, and he's a Guyanese, and I will not say that Lincoln Lewis is a racist. Not at all. I think Mr. Lincoln Lewis is a true Guyanese with a political priority who has made his choices, but he is a good Guyanese otherwise. And usually very impartial and very credible. But in this case, he's a candidate, and politics run good men mad, as I usually say. Now, if the CEO, Mr. Lowenfield, brought up 156 days in his mathematics for the count, knowing it will take months, knowing the Guyanese DNA, he didn't expect opposition, he didn't expect to be critiqued and to be molested and shoved in a corner and that his legacy would be further tarnished. Mr. Lowenfield should have brought up the 156 that he had, and then another one that he suggested. He came up with that because they're saying because of Commissioner Ben's idea. So come up, but he thinks that is too long, and 156 days would be ludicrous. And so he's coming up with another one, 5 or 8 or 10, so that it will go on faster. This would have protected Lowenfield's name and given him a little bit of credit over the fact that he has lost it all in Guyana and around the world. But Lincoln Lewis, I understand what you're saying, and I can feel your political priority, and I'm not going to critique you further. I said I know you're not a racist, but you are a political operative, and that you have a right to share your point of view, and I take that from the Chronicle newspapers. I did notice also that it was published in the other newspapers as well. How can one feel comfortable when there have been so much of skullduggery and open attempts at theft and fraud of a nation? My disappointment is Mr. Lincoln Lewis was not there. He did not see, but he must have gotten some facts or listened to the opposition or to other persons or impartial persons as myself. There was a definite attempt at total massive rigging, unheard of in the history of Guyana, that even Lyndon Fope Sampson Burnham would turn in his grave to see what these guys have been doing, Mingo and Lowenfield, and playing with the people along with Miss Myers, the deputy CEO, the games and the tricks and the junior that they put on, and the sickness and the illnesses, and the fake SOPs and the fake calling. Mr. Lincoln Lewis, my brother, you needed to be there to understand what was going on. I was there. OAS was there. Carter Center was there. CARICOM was there. The United Nations was there. And they had people who were watching from overseas. Countries like the African, Caribbean and Pacific nations who condemned what was going on. India. The United States, all the ambassadors. You mean to say they're all corrupted? They're all, only one is right, that is GCOM. GCOM might be constitutional, but that does not mean they can do what they want. Mr. Lincoln Lewis, you cannot use the law to commit crime. You cannot use the law to breach law. They are unfit And all those personalities that the people are pointing fingers to, many of them got into there through manipulation and trickery. Even from long before the election started, things were being put in place, mechanism militaristically, personalities being changed and switched and not renewed contracts and so forth. We have to be realistic, man. This is a charade. And now they're trying to interfere with the former Prime Minister Bruce Golding of Jamaica. Now you want to show that he is not credible because while he's Prime Minister or before Prime Minister, he was looking after some personality that was involved in development, albeit maybe crime. Presidents and Prime Ministers don't have magical minds to know who are in crime all the time, and when they do, they withdraw themselves. But you're trying to destroy everybody through the consultant that they have hired in the United States to find dirt on people. Mr. Lincoln Lewis, do you have dirt? Do you have skeleton in your closet? All human beings have some skeletons in their closet. The OAS now is no good. They're trying to find ways to tarnish its image. But only one, that is the GCOM, with its partner in politics, are right. But the whole world is wrong, including 190 or 92 countries called the United Nations, including Sridhar Ramphal, including the Prime Minister of Trinidad, including Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, who said there are forces who don't want the recount. Can't you see, Mr. Lewis, the shenanigans and the deception and the deceit, man? Go into your heart. Let your heart speak to you, man. And that consciousness in there that I know you have. Forget about your political priority that you have as a human being and as a patriot of this country. And I know, Mr. Lincoln Lewis, that you are a patriot.